Hello friends, Matt Wilson here again for another weekend video, rock video. Well, there'll be all kinds of music in today's show besides rock. This is going to be the top 70 albums of 1980. And as I'm always complaining to you guys about, this was another bitch of a show to make. Right now, I cannot hook my printer up to my laptop, so I couldn't scan off any album covers for you guys today. So I have pictures of them on my computer, which I'm just going to show you. There was 5 or 6 or 7 albums like that. So anyways, I did find everything else though, and since these shows are just sometimes lengthy, let's begin. All right, so 1980 was another great year. I mean, I really enjoyed the years 77, 78, 79, and 80. Those were great punk and post-punk years. There won't be too many punk albums I'm going to be showing you today for 1980, but plenty of post-punk new wave stuff. That's really what I was into at the time. Classic rock, in the term that we used to describe 70s music like that was kind of dying out, but I'll have some of that too. Reggae was kind of dying out. Anyway, I'll touch upon a lot of different genres today, hopefully to please everybody. Okay, I always start off with my number one choice. I had a hard time with this. I chose Springsteen's The River. It meant the most to me at the time. It came out at the very end of the year, like the Clash's Sandinista or John Lennon's Double Fantasy. I think of those as December albums. I think Double Fantasy came out before December. Anyways, this oftentimes I have said is my favorite Springsteen album. Like I said, it certainly meant the most to me at the time. Would I still say that? I don't know. I mean, why not? I love pretty much everything on here, and even the filler is pretty good. So Bruce Springsteen's The River, you guys know I love a great double album, is my favorite, I'm not saying it's the best, is my favorite LP of 1980. All right, that's my number one choice. All right, I'm going to go with something a little off the beaten path here. I'm going with Prince's Dirty Mind. Now, I did not discover this in 1980. Did I say I turned 15 that year? So I was in high school. Discovered it a few years after that. I've always loved it. This is just the old Warner Brothers CD. It's not remastered in any way. But I played this to death when I was in college. It's the first Prince album I really loved. A couple albums he made in the late 70s are pretty good, but this is the first, I think, masterpiece. All right, that's Prince's Dirty Mind. Deciding whether I should show you Elvis Costello's Get Happy or U2's Boy. Let's go with Get Happy just to get one of these ones on my computer out of the way. I could not find this for some reason. This is what Get Happy looks like. Like I said, it's 1980 LP for Elvis Costello and the Attractions. I found every other Elvis Costello album from the 70s and the 80s. I don't know what I've done with my copy of Get Happy. It was 20 songs. It was a long album. It's another mind-numbingly great record from a guy who could do no wrong at that time in 1980. It's a prime Attractions album. I'm rating that right now as my number 3 choice. All right. So, and you know what? I may as well get Boy out the way now. Number 4 is Boy. Still one of my favorite U2 albums. This is another band I was not hip to in 1980. I didn't get into this album until a couple years later, probably when War was out. I went back and I got the first 2. But this is a great record. This is easily my favorite of the first 2 U2 albums. I did a U2 show not too long ago. They had released an EP by this point. I love everything on here. This is a double disc set, which I highly recommend. And it's got all their early releases from this era. Boy is my number 4 choice. Okay, number 5 is, I'm going with the Feelies. Crazy Rhythms. I've always loved this album. This is a post-punk album. These guys are American. You never heard this album on the radio. You had to be hip to this record by somebody turning you on to it or reading about it in some Music Mag. It's fantastic. I still love it to this day. It's just classic kind of post-punk, new wave. This is back when this kind of art rock music was very cool. Look at these guys. They kind of look like Talking Heads or something, don't they? Kind of dorky looking. Great music, though. Take it from Matt. The Feelies, Crazy Rhythms, outstanding LP. That's my 5th choice. I'm going with my 6th choice now. What the hell? I'll show you another one from my computer. Here's Madness, Absolutely. I was a big Madness guy, big two-tone guy. I'm going to show you, hopefully, the English beats. I just can't stop it real soon because I may like this album. I may like the Beat album better. But see, this is what I'm always telling you guys. Don't get hung up on my ratings, on how I rank these albums. If I'm showing it to you, I like it. If it's in my top 10 or top 20, I love it. All right? Played this album to death. Absolutely. Probably about as good as their first album from '79. I think these two could be their best. All right, let's get rid of this tab so I don't hit it again. All right. Okay. I don't want to lose track here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 6? Okay, number 7. This is John Lennon, Double Fantasy. This is the old Low Fidelity version. Yeah, I know a lot of Lennon fans don't like this album because, hey, I don't like the Yoko songs. I love the Yoko songs. I played this album to death. I mean, I was one of those guys who was really affected by his death. And, this is when I really ascertained, that I liked John more than Paul, but I'm struggling to think if in the 70s if I felt that way. I don't know. Anyways, I still see his death as a great loss, and love these songs. I even like all the songs they did in these sessions. I like the Milk and Honey album too, from 1984. I thought, if you combine those songs and these songs, it would have been a great double album. So I really like Double Fantasy. All right. Number 8. Told you it was coming up. Just can't stop it. English Beat. This album's just as good as that Madness album I showed you. It's more kind of ska, two-tone stuff. I played this. This is almost a perfect record. I was playing this, at night in my fraternity days, years after this album was released. I was still digging this. This and the first Pretenders album. Certain things just did not age for me for a long time. There was such a glut of great music in the 80s, even more so than in the 70s. That, it was hard to keep playing records that were a few years old, for me anyway, when you were constantly playing, catch up with what was happening at the time. This is one of those albums that I even in the mid-80s, I was probably still, this was in heavy rotation on my turntable, or by then I had a CD player. They're called the Beat in the UK. They're called the English Beat here in the States. You know who they are. What number is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's 9. Let's do Talking Heads, Remain in Light. At the time, this was my favorite Talking Heads album. This was it. This was my favorite Talking Heads album. Now, I don't know if I would say that, over Fear of Music. I mean, the Talking Heads were so good. It's hard to pick one, but at the time, this was from the big white brick box, which has all their albums in surround sound. So there you go. Remain in Light. At one time, my favorite. All right. 9. I think this will make it 10. I'm going to lose track because I'm interweaving the albums I'm showing you on my computer in with, what I have here. So, Sandinista, The Clash. Now, a lot of people think this is like a messy kind of album, a sloppy record, because it was a triple LP. I played this to death, when it came out. I loved the little booklet that it came with, with all of the illustrations and whatnot. This is a double CD. Yeah, there was filler on here, particularly toward the end. That third LP, had just a bunch of dub versions. But if you could have, taken the finest songs from this album and just made a double album like London Calling, it would have been almost as good. Still not as good as London Calling, but I was one of those guys who really bought into that the Clash are the only band that matters, kind of mentality, and so I loved this. I didn't love it as much as The River, but yeah, I love it. So I want to say that's my top 10. In case I lost track there, sorry. Okay, let's keep going. I almost want to stop saying what the numbers are because, like I said, I'm going to lose track, constantly interweaving albums from my computer in there. Here's Motorhead, Ace of Spades. It's another almost perfect metal album. This is the album that really turned me on to them, although I like all their previous albums too. But there's not even an average track on here. I love it all. It's just balls to the wall metal, even though they never really consider themselves a metal band. I like this better than Back in Black, which I'll have soon. That's not really a metal album anyway, though. I like this better than, British Steel or whatever. I'll be showing you, various hard rock or metal records from 1980 because, that was part of my youth. All right. Here's the third Peter Gabriel album. Again, this was my favorite record of his growing up. There's lots of albums from this year that are going to be my favorite from that particular artist or band. I still think that this is the best. This is the SACD. I'm rating this higher than Duke by Genesis, the Genesis record that was concurrent with this. I love me some. The first four Peter Gabriel albums were all called Peter Gabriel in the UK, but they had different names here in the States. I don't know what they called this one. Melt? I don't remember now, but I've always just called it Peter Gabriel 3. Okay. Let's move on. All right. You could not be a kid in 1980 and avoid this. Back in Black. This was AC/DC's biggest, probably their best album. Even though I am a Bon Scott guy over a Brian Johnson guy through and through, Brian Johnson had a hell of great AC/DC songs, and this is, I'm going to say, their best album. Cut for cut, there's more AC/DC classics on Back in Black than probably any Bon Scott record. All right, it's just too bad that the band with Brian could not maintain this level of integrity for the rest of their career, or even a few more albums. I like Flo's About to Rock, but it's not as good as this. All right, Back in Black. All right, here's a real metal album. Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath. Now this was the, Ozzy was big that year with Randy Rhoads and the Blizzard of Oz record, which I'll get to. Love that one too. Heaven and Hell was the return of Black Sabbath. Return meaning that they made another great album for the first time in 5 years. Probably, since Sabotage in '75. This is a classic AC/DC record. They had Ronnie James Dio on here, who was, of course, with Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow before this, and I love those Rainbow records that Dio sang on, and Elf before that. But Heaven and Hell, classic Sabbath, classic metal. They really mattered again, which I always loved. You know what? I'll show you the Police Nows and Yada Mandata. It's not that I couldn't find this, but that I have a Police box set, which does not reproduce the album covers. So I had to find this online to show you. This is a real commercial type album for them. Some people do prefer the first two, especially Regatta de Blanc. I probably like Regatta de Blanc more than this, but not that much. Just because this is more commercial. They were playing these songs on the radio a lot, and for a new wave band to be this is pre-MTV, to be hearing these songs on rock radio stations, that was a big breakthrough. And it's kind of like what the Cars had done in 1978. So I still love Zenyatta Mandata. Still think the Police were a great band. And there you go. Now again, I'm going to get rid of this tab so I don't. Okay. Okay, let's move on up to, you can see again, I'm not even bothering to number these albums anymore because I'm going to forget. Here's XTC, all right, Black Sea. At the time, this was my favorite XTC album. Now, I'm not sure if I even like it more than Drums and Wires. It might be more consistent. This, to me, though, this is just another great XTC record. Again, post-punk, new wave. It's not that much of a punky influence on XTC, and not by this point anyway. But those kind of herky-jerky rhythms. They toured with the Talking Heads, didn't they? Very strong album. This is the surround sound Steven Wilson mix, which you get tons of stuff on here. I highly recommend it. So, really great record. XTC, Black Sea. All right. Let's go one more on the computer, because I see Closer by Joy Division, and I got to get that out of the way, because this almost could have been in my top 10, really. Okay, again, I have the big Heart and Soul box set from Joy Division, so I don't have the album covers reproduced. I have to show you like this, or I could have just printed them out. That would have been better. Closer was the last album that Ian Curtis made with the band before he passed. It's a great record, probably not quite as good as Unknown Pleasures, but still a classic, still great, still affected me. I didn't hear these songs on the radio until a few years later when San Diego had 91X started, which was their post-punk new wave station. And when I was in Stockton in 1980, you weren't going to hear this on the radio. That was too conservative of a rock town. But I love it. I love Closer. I love Joy Division. I later went on to really like New Order. Okay, I can stop showing you ones on the computer for a while. All right, we're still in what I consider to be classic territory here. Rush. All right. God, I'm tripping. Permanent Waves. Permanent Waves was a big record for them, probably even bigger in terms of radio play than 1978's Hemispheres, which was the song was too long and too proggy. They still had the proggy aspect to their music at this point, but this is the Mo-Fi version. But these are more radio friendly songs. You'll notice I'm not really going into detail about the songs on these albums, because it's just these top 70 records of a given year shows are just too long. So, but this was one that they played a lot on the radio. I loved it, I still like Rush. They're like one of those childhood bands I never quite got over. Okay, here's another one, kind of like the Feelies, that they never played on the radio. I never did hear it. Young Marble Giants, Colossal Youth. I love this record. This is another post-punk, kind of very minimalist record. It doesn't really sound like the Feelies. These guys were British. But I've always liked it. I've always played it frequently, and this is a good remastered 2-disc set. You get the whole Colossal Youth album, and then other recordings. And no, I'm sorry, this is a 3-disc set. Look at that. All right, so I highly recommend this. If you can pick it up, I don't know whether it's out of print or whatever, but again, I don't do like research on these discs before I show them to you. All right. There's so much great music coming out of England at that time. It's hard to keep track. More Specials. Now, More Specials, their sound had really progressed from the first album. More so than Madness just kind of made the same record twice when they did their Absolutely album, from their debut album. But this doesn't sound anything like the Specials from 1979. I might like that album more than this, but this is still great. And I played this to death at the time, and it's too bad that they couldn't have kept releasing albums on a regular basis the way that, Madness did for a while, because I loved the Specials. All right. Okay, here's the Jam, Sound Effects. The Jam were one of my favorite bands at that time. I remember a friend of mine, when I had moved to Stockton, he was still in San Diego, and he sent me a cassette, and it was a bunch of songs, of what, like the new music, the new post-punk music, and there was some Jam songs on there. And I remember thinking, well, I already like the Jam, you didn't need to. But anyways, Sound Effects, I don't know if I have a favorite Jam album, but it's probably either this one or All Mod Cons. So this one I I Xeroxed off because I got the big Jam box set, which does not reproduce these LP covers. So, but I had this Xeroxed off from previously. I didn't do it this week. All right. Probably the last great Queen album is The Game. They had nonstop great records, at least very good records, from the first album in the early 70s to this one. This is like the last time I would really get behind a Queen album. This is the old Mo-Fi version. Again, this was all over the radio. They didn't do, an album in 81, but that Greatest Hits album came out after this, and that was huge. But I would have rather that Queen kept going and making more new music than already beginning to sit on their past reputation. But The Game played it tons. They were still a great, relevant band at that point. This is the last Steely Dan album to matter, Gaucho. A lot of people will tell you it's not one of their best, but you know what? Who cares? It's good enough. It's a great record. No, it's not. Asia, which is the one before this, but that was 3 years before this, and we were fiending for some Steely Dan. So, I like the Nightfly from that came out in '82, but this is better than the Nightfly, and is immaculately recorded. So even if this is not one of their better records, who cares? It's still great. Gaucho. Okay, I'm going to rate this one high because I'm an unapologetic Eric Clapton fan, and I haven't shown you a Clapton album in my, top 70 albums of any given year since, Slow Hand in 77. I like this album a lot at the time. This is my favorite live solo Clapton album, Just One Night. It was a double LP. Here's the Mo-Fi version. When I have seen Eric live, and I've seen him a few times, I don't know if I've ever seen him do a show as good as this record is. It has what I think is the ultimate version of Cocaine on here. Oh, look, I'm talking about songs. Tulsa Time was a hit, but I like everything on here. I do. Okay, moving on now. I know that we're into our 20s, but I've lost count. I'm not even going to try to pick up on the count anymore. Here's we're still in really great albums though. Here's David Bowie's Scary Monsters. This is the last great album he would probably ever make. I know there's fans of Black Star out there and whatnot, but at the time, it was just another great Bowie album. Is this a better album than Lodger? I like them both about the same, to be honest with you. This is the old, these old Ryko discs, which I still like. I still got quite a few of them, if not all of them. Because, look at all those bonus tracks. And the sound quality's fine. It's like it could be better, but it doesn't bother me. I love these old Ryko Bowie albums on CD, and I highly recommend picking this up. All right, here's British Steel, Judas Priest. You guys know I'm a big Priest guy. This is yet another classic Priest album. They played this on the radio. They just started playing Priest on the radio, on rock radio in San Diego in the late 70s. So, British Steel was another good one. They're almost taking a more pop direction, but it's still, demonstrably metal. And so I love it. There you are, British Steel. Pick it up. Right next to that, I'm going to put Iron Maiden's first album. This is when they still had Paul Di'Anno as their singer. I know these are very loud, remastered Maiden CDs, but I don't care. If there's a genre that can take being compressed and loud and all in the red, it's metal. So there you are, Iron Maiden. I still think one of their best albums. Okay, maybe I'm rating this a bit high, but okay, like I always tell you, don't get too hung up on my ratings. This is Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July. Again, it's kind of like Scary Monsters, and at the time, it was just another great Stevie Wonder album. We thought he was going to keep going and continue to be great. He didn't. I did not include, Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants in my 1979 show because it's not that good of an album. He's trying. It's progressive. He's taking a chance, but to me, it doesn't work. I like this. This is kind of like a return to form. No, it's not, as good as the classic 73 to 76 records, but it's good enough. It's good enough. Higher Than July. If he could have continued to go on to the 80s, making albums this good, same with Bowie or Queen, I'd have been a very happy man. Unfortunately, it was kind of the end of an era for some of these guys, and Stevie Wonder is one of those people. Okay, this is another one I might be ranking a bit high, but I don't care. I'm a big Cure guy. I love Robert Smith. 17 Seconds. This is our first, I think, fully realized album. The first album, I think, as I've said before, I like it better in its American version, the Boys Don't Cry. This doesn't need to be, bastardized in any way. This is a double CD. I like most everything on here. This is moody, and they're moving away from kind of pop on this record. But, The Cure would always return to pop songs. And they would get better after this. But I really like 17 Seconds. Okay, here's one I don't think you're going to hear people besides me promote. But if you've seen my Pretty Things show from a couple years ago, I like this album. This is Crosstalk. This is kind of a post-punk, new wavy album, even though these guys were never punk. But the Pretty Things were great, and they would be one of my recommendations for a great British invasion era band that most Americans don't really know. So if I can get you to pick up a Pretty Things album, or even this one, and you don't have any before, I'll consider myself to be successful with this show. All right, here's UB40 signing off. Like I said, reggae was kind of dying out by this point. UB40 was the most successful reggae band to ever come out of the UK. They were some black guys, some white guys, some English guys, some Jamaican guys. This was a solid record. Their next album was pretty good too. Labor of Lust was the big one because it had Red Red Wine, but this is their best record. Signing off. It had multiple hits in the UK and still holds up well. All right, signing off, UB40. Here's a little personal choice. Hall & Oates voices, they were the most successful duo on pop radio in America in the first half of the 1980s, by far. This is a good record, voices. They're a band, or a duo, that I've never fully investigated their entire career, so I don't have a lot of their albums. I do like this one, though. I think I showed one of their greatest hits albums in my last video, which was best compilations ever. So I do enjoy their 45s. You heard them all the time on the radio. This is a good record, voices. Okay, The Damned. I'm a big Damned guy. They had done Machine Gun Etiquette, which I love, in 79. This is the Black Album, which I also love almost as much. This is a double disc, which has the entire album and then other tracks. Boy, look at that glare. Now you can see it. Strong record. They were changing their sound away from, hardcore British punk in much the same way as the Clash was. They weren't embracing reggae and dub like the Clash, or even early hip hop, like as on a track on Sandinista. But I do, these guys didn't get nearly the hype that the Clash did, and they're very good. The Damned, the Black Album. Check it out. If you know, you know. Okay, here's Willie Nelson and Honeysuckle Rose. My family were big Willie Nelson people. I have virtually every album he ever did at this point. I don't show you enough Willie Nelson on here because I just think that, you guys aren't going to care. But I do like country a lot more than I let on these shows. This was the soundtrack to a movie that I enjoyed at the time. It's got On the Road Again. I love it. And there you are. The soundtrack to Honeysuckle Rose by Willie Nelson, who is still around, still in his 90s, still smoking weed. He's got his new Willie's Remedy, which is a beverage which has got cannabis in it, although I don't think there's any alcohol in it. So he's still around, still being Willie. Okay, what's my next stack here? Well, I'll go for this one. Have I done about 30 of them already? Probably more than that. Okay, here is the Undertones and their second record, Hypnotized. Great probably about as good as their first album from '79. I may have played this one slightly less because I just, there weren't as many great punk or pop punk as in the case of this album's in 1980 when I was 15. But this is still awesome, and one of Ireland's great bands ever. Same year as Boy. This was a record, though, that all my friends had at the time. Van Halen's Women and Children First. I don't have the CD. This is a CDR. I printed it out a long time ago. I probably don't like this album. Well, it's definitely not as good as the first album. I probably would prefer the second album to this. And Fair Warning. But kind of like Gaucho, even if this is lesser Van Halen, it's still great. I like virtually every song on here. So just because this, to me, doesn't hit as hard as the surrounding albums, doesn't mean any David Lee Roth era Van Halen record is worth your time. All right? It ain't metal, it's hard rock, but these guys were consummate musicians, and Eddie Van Halen changed the course of guitar playing, for a long time. All right, moving on. This is Dire Straits, Making Movies. Here's the Mo-Fi version. I got all the early Dire Straits albums. They're pretty good. They didn't blow me away live. They kind of just stood there and played, but that's fine. What does one want them to do? Dance around? This is a solid record. I don't know if I have a favorite Dire Straits album. I know that, the one with Money for Nothing might be the most popular one, but is that the best? I think the first one is really, really good. The second one, not so good, but still good. This is a strong record, though, Making Movies. There were so many great albums, guys, in 1980 that it's difficult. It was really hard to condense this down to 70, and I left out many albums. I could have gone to 100, but I could say that for virtually any year. Okay, here's Bauhaus, is their first album. God, I've forgotten the title. In the Flat Fields? Yeah, In the Flat Fields. I was a Bauhaus guy. I have a CD, not a CD, but a CD box set of all their 80s records. This is probably my favorite one. I used to play Bela Lugosi's Dead to Death because I had a CD single when it was hard to find. It's a long song. It isn't on here. But this is solid. This is goth and, probably not as good as Closer. But this, well, look, I'm rating this higher than I am, something like by Susan the Banshees. All right. Okay, I'm a Hawkwind guy, and this is Levitation, which is the last Hawkwind album I own. It had Ginger Baker on drums. I'm a big Ginger Baker guy. This is a, three disc set. God, bonus tracks, live stuff. Levitation, still great space rock. Again, just like Bowie, just like Queen, like Stevie Wonder or Bob Marley, we thought, we hoped bands like this were just going to go on in the 80s and still be great, but they didn't. This was the last one for a while. All right, UK Subs, another, that's the first album. This is Brand New Age. This is much like, in terms of consistency, it's much like the second Undertones album is to the first. Very good. Probably not quite as good, but I still dig it. UK Subs had a lot of great singles. They had they had good albums, but the first two are my favorites. UK Subs. So these are probably the only two that I'm going to show you in my years shows, my top 70 years shows. But there you go. Brand New Age, great punk album, UK punk album from 1980. All right, Teardrop Explodes, Kilimanjaro. I keep bigging up the UK because I was totally buying so many things that were coming out of that island at the time. Now this is another record that I never heard on the radio, but you had to be turned on to this by reading about it or having friends, talk you into hearing it. So again, being in Stockton, they weren't going to play stuff like this on their rock radio stations up there. So I had to, had to do some investigating. But I can also tell you, I doubt I was even aware of this album in 1980. So I probably got hip to it a bit later. But there you go. Teardrop Explodes, Kilimanjaro. All right, Circle Jerks, Group Sex. This is This CD is funny because this album is so short. They literally put this album on the CD twice. It plays all the way through, and then it just plays the same tracks again, you know. So yeah, Keith Morris, you know, late of Black Flag. This is a hardcore band. It's a hardcore album, but it's great, you know. This was stuff that was coming out of LA, and I was in San Diego, so it was not too far from where I lived. I love it. And Black Flag did a great EP this year too, but Circle Jerks beat him to the punch in terms of who had the first LP. All right, here's the Cramps, Songs the Lord Taught Us. This is virtually everyone's favorite Cramps album. You know, they do you know, old rock and roll covers. They had their kind of what they call it, psychobilly sound. I always dug it. You know, if you like horror movies and you like rockabilly, these guys are right up your alley. It's a strong debut. Wish they made albums as good as this afterwards, but I have not heard every Cramps album, so I'm not an expert. All right, Michael Schenker Group. As I've said many times, I followed Michael Schenker. I loved his work in UFO. He had been on that Scorpions album in '79. I think I've shown you all those records. Here's his first and probably the best MSG album. So, you know, I probably figured he was going to keep going and be a guitar hero for the rest of the 80s, but he, you know, kind of just faded away. But he made a few good records after this. I did a show, you know, on him, UFO, and his early work with this band. So I'm digging it. I'm digging it. All right. Got no idea where I am right now. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Okay. Duke, Genesis. This is the last really good Genesis record, I think, for a while. Maybe ever. I like about half of Abacab. Of course, I did a Genesis show a long time ago. But I think Duke is better than And Then There Were Three in '78. I just listened to this with a friend within the last month or so. It still holds up. You know, prog was really changing in 1980. These old super fart prog bands, of which of course Genesis was one, weren't putting out great music by 1980. Yes, had a good album that year, which I'll include. King Crimson had not come back yet. You know, I guess Gentle Giant's Civilian was pretty good. I could have probably included that on this show, but you know, I really liked Duke. Here's Billy Joel's Glass Houses. Gotta have room for some pop on here. I've already had Hall & Oates. This was another strong Silly Billy record. He put most of the hits on side one, but side two is very good as well. Maybe not quite as outstanding as The Stranger or Glass Houses, but still pretty good. Still pretty great. I think this is classic Billy. Okay, here's Underwater Moonlight, the Soft Boys. This is the only Soft Boys album I think I've ever heard. Robert Hitchcock, you know. First time I ever heard him. First time I ever knew who he was. I played this album a lot. I would have probably called this kind of like post-punk power pop at the time. I don't know what I'd call it now. I went to Amoeba Records once here in LA, in Hollywood. He was just playing a set. He just was in there as people were shopping. So there you go. Robert Hitchcock. I think he was doing all Bob Dylan songs, if memory serves. All right, Rockpile, Seconds of Pleasure. This was another fairly popular record at the time. You know, they're kind of pop, rockabilly, you know, rockist approach. You know, Nick Lowe, Dave Edmunds. These guys were good for a while. Again, it's too bad these guys couldn't have lasted. All right, so yeah, I got fond memories of this at the time. I don't remember them doing another album after this, but I probably am wrong. All right, Warren Zevon. I was a big Warren Zevon guy. He did 2 albums this year. This is his live album, Stand in the Fire, which I actually like a bit better than his studio album, which I'll get to in a second because I'm going to include that too. This is a great CD with bonus tracks, and it's a hella good show, or shows. I don't remember if it's more than one. So, Warren Zevon. His buddy Jackson Browne released an album that year too. Hold Out, whatever. Hold On. I remember which I thought was okay at the time, but you know, as the years have gone on, I prefer some of these Warren Zevon albums better. Okay, here's the B-52's Wild Planet. Now, I think their first album's a classic. Came out in '79. This is probably the closest that they came to releasing another classic. Wild Planet is not quite as good, but you know, it's got My Own Private Idaho on there. That's one of their greatest songs ever. I dig it. It's good. But I can hang with pretty much any 80s B-52's album. I don't even know which one would be the worst. You know, Bouncing Off the Satellites, Whammy. And I like those fine. But this is when they were still really good. All right? So, Wild Planet, B-52s. Here's another great one from 1980, American band, The Blasters. It's called American Music. I don't know if this was the original cover or not. I don't remember now. It could be. Their next album, though, in '81, is even better. So when I do my '81 show, I'll big that one up. But American Music, lots of great stuff. They kind of had like a rockabilly sound before the Stray Cats. All right. Okay. I'm talking about a Pacific Northwest band that I like a lot called the Wipers. All right, and man, actually, you know what? I can see it right there. All right, so no, that's the Alien Boy EP. Anyways, it's Youth of America, I think, is their 1980 album. It's really good. I like this one too, but they were like a punk band or a post-punk band or just a hard rocking band. Greg Sage was the lead guy, singer, guitar player, and again, you never heard these guys on the radio. Even when I was living in Stockton, which was in Northern California, I don't remember hearing these guys. You had to be hip to them through other means. So, anyways, Wipers. Actually, no, it's called Is This Real? Screwed up. So yeah, I guess it is this one. Is This Real? I screwed that one up. But I like all three of their albums. Okay, here's the first Psychedelic Furs record. Again, post-punk, kind of a Bowie-sounding singer. Oh, that's the album cover, by the way. That's what it looks like. That's what my record looked like. They would go on to be even bigger, you know, and have radio hits. But at the time, this album, which I certainly did not have this remastered CD. This album was like a thing. It's like, you know, it's something that we discussed. Okay, kind of getting out of order here, but that's all right, as long as I get them all in. Here's some albums that are so good, I probably should have had them farther up on the list. But like I say, don't hang up on my rankings. Here's Echo and the Bunnymen, Crocodiles. This is a classic. I mean, we played this. I still maintain that Boy is a better record. We used to compare Echo to U2. And I think the hipsters really, you know, the kind of guys with the teased hair and the black trench coats, the Ian McCullough kind of people, they did prefer the Bunnymen. This is a great record. It's kind of like at the time what Psychedelia, you know, was sounding like. But yeah, I love it a lot. Here's Bad Streak and Dancing School. It's the Warren Zevon studio album of that year. Really good. I like the primordial power of the live album more, though. But this is still when Warren Zevon was a great artist. All right. Here's a Kaleidoscope, Susie and the Banshees. You know this one, Juju. Maybe in the first album, The Scream, can all vie for her best album. I mean, I liked Susie a lot. I put her greatest hits albums on my best compilations show. So, but I mean, you know, Happy House. You know what? Again, Christine, right? Yeah. I'm not going to go over the songs because the show's been going on for 44 minutes already. We got to move on. Okay, here's one you probably haven't heard of. Linton Kwesi Johnson, Bass Culture. Again, coming out of England. Don't have the CD, but I got this old CDR from years ago. So no, I was not hip to this album in 1980. But, you know, I probably didn't even get this album to the 90s. But it's good enough to include on my show, and I like it. Here's Cultosaurus erectus. Blue Oyster Cult. I was a BOC guy, and I played this album a lot in San Diego before I moved to Stockton in the summer of 1980. This was one of my favorites. All right, I do like it better than the Mirrors album from '79. Okay, here is Doc at the Radar Station. Captain Beefheart, maybe his last great album. Although, you know, I like Ice Cream for Crow just fine in 1982. But again, we thought, or I hoped he would go on and still be great, but he was already slowing down by this point. All right. Okay. I'm going to set that Pylon one for a second here. Here's Bob Marley and the Wailers, Uprising, another album like Higher Than July, like Gaucho, like, you know, The Game, where it was just another cool Bob Marley record, and we had no indication this would be like the last one. The last good one anyway. Well, he died, so the last one. But anyways, Uprising, solid record. Probably better than his 79 album anyway. Okay, I want to show you, just so I can get out the way here, a group called Pylon. I got the box set with all the stuff in there, and they do bother to reproduce the LP. This is Gyrate. This is what it looked like. It's a real cool record. They were out of Georgia, you know, just like B-52s and later REM. But what makes these guys hipper, maybe, possibly, than those two bands? You never heard this on the radio. I don't know how big they were in, you know, Georgia, but in San Diego, they were virtually unknown. Okay, but Pylon, it's really good stuff. Check it out. I probably should have had this earlier. Gosh, some of these albums I'm just forgetting about. This is Ozzy, Blizzard of Oz. You know, again, I think I mentioned this earlier. He had come back with Randy Rhoads. This was a huge, this was more played on the radio than Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. This is like a metal classic. It's metal, you know, it's not, it's kind of popish for metal. And I do hear a bit of Van Halen in Randy's playing, but not too much, because Randy was more, you know, European classical music inclined than Eddie was. But this is great stuff. Here's Ramones, the Phil Spector album, End of the Century. This is the first less than great Ramones album, though. It's interesting because it's produced by Phil, but I wish the songs were better. So this is kind of like they were starting to, like, you know, breathe their last in terms of making consistent, great records, because I loved everything that they did in the 70s. But I like this album enough, certainly enough to include it in my top 70 albums of 1980. Here's Def Leppard, On Through the Night. I always liked that cover for some reason. It's cheesy, but I liked it when I was a kid. Not as good as High and Dry, but I still like it. I mean, I like early Leopard, and this is when they were, you know, just another band in the new wave of British heavy metal acts. Here's Yes's Drama. This is the last really good prog album that they made for a long time anyway. You had, Trevor Rabin, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Johnny Anderson wasn't even on this record. And I know you're thinking, you know, how could it be a Yes album without Johnny Anderson? But it's solid. Check it out if you haven't already. Here's Dexys Midnight Runners, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels. They love this in the UK. I like it. I don't know if I see the greatness in it that they do, but again, certainly good enough to promote on this show. This is, you know, Come On Eileen. Let's go back to the computer, because I kind of forgot about this. The Monochrome Set was a band I was into in the 80s, and they did 2 albums in 1980. I like them both. This is their second one, the Monochrome Set. It's called Love Zombies, and I'm gonna show you that, but I'm also gonna show you Strange Boutique, which was their debut album. Liked them both. Again, maybe heard these guys a few times on 91X in San Diego. the post-punk new wave station, but they were virtually, see, I loved to get into bands that nobody else knew about. You know, and at the time, I mean, I don't know how big these guys were in the UK, but in California, I didn't know any friends who liked this stuff. So there you go. And for the last one, well, it's not the last one quite. Here's Adam the Ants, King of the Wild Frontier. This is a great record. I should have had this higher, but again, I couldn't find it, so it was stuck here on my computer, so I forgot to show it to you guys earlier. But again, don't get hung up on my rankings. Kings of the Wild Frontier is an awesome kind of, popish, it could only have come from the UK kind of record. I love it. And here's the last thing I'll show you because I can't seem to think of anything else. I hope that this is 70 records. Here's Steve Winwood's Ark of a Diver. You guys know I'm a big Traffic guy, and I was not blown away by his first album in 77. I know people that are out there who like it, they're fans. I like this though. They did play this on the radio, and it had just that kind of combination of kind of quirky, whatever, that kind of Winwood quality, but it didn't sound like it was classic rock. It didn't sound like Traffic, I liked it then, I still like it. Ark of a Diver, this is the old Mo-Fi version. And I want to say that's probably it. Yeah, that is it. So, that was a tough show. That's Matt. That's my top 70 albums of 1980. Until next time.